I have an indefatigable drive, right? Just an indefatigable drive. And so while I am not happy, I know how to go forward. So I just keep going forward. My wife sometimes says to me, sometimes things just stink, because I'm always like, look at the silver lining, or, the glass is half full. And I said, don't think that I don't think it stinks, but it doesn't do us any good if I'm bitter, or I cry over, in my own soup, or, you know what I mean? Or cry over spilled milk. It's just, so yes, the short answer is routinely.
You're listening to the Inner Compass podcast. I'm Andy Petranek. Here, it's my mission to uncover how real people, high performers, and leaders build extraordinary lives without losing themselves in the process. We'll dig into what's behind the success, the wins, the missteps, and the lessons learned along the way. If you're ready to lead, live, and succeed, and draw inspiration from how others have done it, you're in the right place. And by the way, the Inner Compass is produced in partnership with Rainmaker U, a business development community that helps professionals become the person to see in their industry. So today's podcast is very special in that it's number one of the podcasts I'm doing with guests. And my guest today is Tim O'Brien. He is the founder of Rainmaker U, which is also the sponsor of the podcast. It's a community that I'm a part of, and it helps professionals position themselves as the person to see in their industry. Now, about Tim, I've known Tim for over 20 years. He's been in the business development and coaching world in Los Angeles for more than 20 years. And his path getting here, wasn't straight at all. He earned his law degree from Georgetown, and then he built a successful career as an attorney. But after that, he took an unexpected detour into acting. Go figure, he's in Los Angeles. And eventually he found his way to coaching and business development. Now you'll hear in the interview today what makes him so good at what he does. It just it comes off of him naturally. But it's the winding journey that shaped his life that helps him teach others to build careers that are rooted in freedom, authenticity, and connection. Tim has worked with hundreds of business leaders. He's helped them clarify their personal brands, grow their influence, and create businesses that reflect who they truly are. His work blends practical strategy with heart. And his story is a reminder that success isn't about getting it perfect. It's about having the courage to keep moving forward. So here we go with episode number 1. Welcome, Tim O'Brien. This is Mr. Rainmaker U right here, Tim O'Brien, the founder of Rainmaker U. Welcome, Tim.
Glad to be here, my brother.
Man, you're my first guest on this podcast, and I can't think of a better person to start with. I've known you for 20 some odd years, and I've watched various iterations of Rainmaker U and your life. And it's really cool to be part of what you're building through Rainmaker U, and to feature this and you and your people in this podcast.
Awesome. And I'm glad. Thank you for letting me be the kickoff guest.
Or the guinea pig.
It's going to be awesome.
All right. So, Tim, just let people in a little bit about, tell me a little bit about Rainmaker U. Tell me a little bit about the idea. You don't have to go into all the details, but how'd you get where you are with Rainmaker U?
I love the question. I actually have a very specific answer. Years ago, I was a business coach, and you're always trying to find your niche. And I read a book called The Man to See, and it was about this guy, Edward Bennett Williams, which was, he was, the most famous trial lawyer in American history since Clarence Darrow. And a couple of things struck me about it. One was he got to pick his clients, and he got to name his price. In addition to building great wealth, and all of the power brokers in Washington, D.C. would reach out to him. Hence the name of the book called The Man to See. And I thought to myself, the guy has total freedom. And total freedom is defined by, I get to pick my clients and I get to name my price. And if that doesn't meet what their expectations are, no worries, go find somebody else. And so I built Rainmaker U modernizing it, because there are a lot of women who are super successful too, as opposed to the man to see being the person to see. And the whole idea was build out a coaching program. You were one of the original OGs, and to build out a coaching program that taught professionals how to identify their personal brand and market their brand so they become the person to see with their target audience. So that's how it got started, and that's what our mission and focus is.
And what does it look like today? Like give us an overview of what it is.
Well, it's funny. You said you've seen it through, a number of different iterations. We used to run it live in downtown Los Angeles, where you would come to a club, the Jonathan Club, and we would meet once a quarter for a full day from 9 to 5, and we would work on 4 different areas. And I was a bit of a purist, right? I wanted people to come for coaching. I didn't want them to come for networking. It wasn't that they couldn't network, but if people came just to network, the people that were there for coaching might be put off by it. And so I was kind of a purist about it. And then coming out of COVID, I saw that, maybe there was an opportunity for some positive change. One of the things is I thought people might be more ready for e-learning. And so what I did was I digitized all the content. And so now it's a hybrid of e-learning and group monthly coaching calls. The second part of it was I really felt that people were very hungry for community. And so I wanted to build out study networking group chapters. So I made that part of the platform as important as the coaching part, because I was going to let people choose. Do I want to be in the coaching? Do I want to be in the networking? Do I want to be in both of them? And we're both equally valid. So we built out 6 chapters, one in San Diego, one in Orange County, one in downtown LA, and one in the San Fernando Valley. And we're currently exploring, we're currently in the process of launching our Orange County 2 chapter.
Fantastic. I don't know if you saw that little hiccup in the recording.
I saw something. I don't have my glass. I couldn't read it, but I saw something.
Something happened, and we're just going to go right on as if nothing. So Tim, part of the intention of this podcast is to help people relate to kind of how you got to where you are, because in all accounts, you're at the top of your game, especially in Los Angeles, but I would say maybe even anywhere. Was there a time in your early life that you noticed maybe you were a little bit different, and different in a good way?
Yeah.
And what shaped your ambition, your work ethic?
Andy, I think that's the value of this podcast, is you can have people on here, and thank you for the compliments. I've got a long way to go, and I have achieved quite a bit, but I've got a long way to go. And I mean that sincerely, not as false humility. But I will tell you, I'm almost like the perfect guest, because I didn't start out as an entrepreneur. I grew up in a family where our values were comfort, safety, and security. Big Irish Catholic family. When you grow up and you admire your father and your parents, and people are in corporations, and all of a sudden you decide you're going to go into, an entrepreneurial, venue, you don't realize it, but your actions start to, clash with your values. And you've got these gigantic walls that are so sturdy that have been subconsciously instilled in you. So there's this constant conflict of what I wanted, but every time I would brush up against it, I needed to take that risk that the entrepreneur takes. I would pull back. So I call myself a late bloomer, and you could do it put it in a positive context, hey, I was just a late bloomer, but I was figuring it out. No, I wish I were an earlier bloomer, because I wish I had embraced more risk earlier in my career. And so I was very different, Andy. When I graduated, when I was in college, I was captain of the varsity basketball team, member of the student body, was student body president. Was a summa cum laude, right? Oh, that's fantastic, Tim. Yeah, because life was easy. It was like having bowling pins set up, and I just had to knock them over. Then I got out into the real world, and what I wanted was not what I had been prepared for. And so it was very hard for me, very hard. I made a lot of mistakes. I was really scared. I remember starting Rainmaker or the personal branding group. Back then, the name of the company was Motivational Management. And I was so scared. I was practicing law, and I decided I was going to leave the practice of law, and this was going to be my business. And I remember taking a nap in the middle of the day, because it was the only time I could get peace from the anxiety.
Wow.
And so, but I always had that drive to keep going. Now, if I didn't have those impediments, I think I would have gone further faster. So I'm happy I'm where I'm at here. But if I'm truth be told, I'm delayed growth.
Following up that question, did you have an early win where you knew, okay, I'm on the right track here? Like what kept you going?
My father. So when it's so funny. I mean, it's almost like Andy. It's almost like you sent me the questions beforehand. But you didn't. So I remember. By the way, let's just put it this way too. In between being a lawyer and being a business development coach, I also had a stint in there several years as an actor, and that's actually what brought me out here to California. So I remember going home one Christmas, and I was driving on the East Side Highway in New York with my father, and it was Christmas time, and he could kind of sense something was up. He's like, "Hey, what's up?" And I'm like, "I don't know, Dad. I don't know, because I began to see my friends getting married, going on vacation, buying a home, and I wasn't doing any of that, right? Because I tried to be an actor. I worked as hard as you could possibly work. It just wasn't in the cards. So now I'm later getting started as a coach. I'm 34 years old, and I'm making $60,000 a year at 34 years old when, my colleagues and friends and were buying homes and making, a few $100,000 a year. And I wouldn't even say it was humbling. It was discouraging. And he said to me, and never forget, he said, "Son, you could have easily gone the corporate route. You went to Georgetown Law School, you were in a law firm, and you have decided not to, right? You could have easily gone that. It's not the route you wanted to go. Stay on the path you're on now." And by the way, my dad, when I told him I was going to become an actor, like I thought he was going to fall, like have a heart attack, like not in a happy way. But it was interesting because what he did was, even though he didn't support me leaving the law, here I was on this path. He could have said to me in a moment of weakness, maybe you should go back being a lawyer. And he didn't. He said, keep going. And I know my father has always said, like when things happen, he always said, "Son, I only go one direction." Like in his own life, like my parents were happily married. I only go forward. I only go one direction. I go forward. And he wasn't saying like, "Oh, I crush it." He's just saying, I go forward. I don't go backwards. I don't live in the past. I don't go back and do things that I should have done differently. I only go one direction, forward. And I think it was so funny because who knows why, but that was, I remember vividly, and I stuck to it. And then the next year I made 120,000, and the year after that I made 240,000. And after that I made about $500,000, and then just it kind of kept growing from there.
Have there been any setbacks along the way that weren't linear? So that your growth wasn't just double, 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 or you must be making like $280 million now, Tim.
Like it's been easy, man. I haven't had any setbacks. You know what I mean? Come on. Yeah. See, everybody wants to, I always say, people want to relate to other people. It's not that they want you to be doing bad so they can feel good about themselves being bad, but they want to know how they relate to you, and that, hey, you've had this success, and what are some of the downfalls that you've had, or some of the obstacles, or some of the mistakes you've made that slowed you down. But the comforting thing is, okay, you persevered through it. I can persevere through it, right? And so, I remember one watershed moment. I had sort of reduced my coaching business to a smaller, profile, a smaller roster of clients. And I got into business with some guys, and it turned out to be literally a disaster. It was not in the coaching business. And I remember being scared to death because I basically had no income. I had 3 children and a wife, and Patricia wasn't working. And I was scared to death. And I remember having to put the whole thing back together again. And it was through my own poor judgment. I remember going down when I was at, on the rise, right? And I went to the $1 Million Roundtable, and I was selected to be a speaker, and I gave a presentation and was, one of the highest rated speakers they ever had. And I had a booth there, and I thought everybody was going to sign up, and I spent $15,000 for this great booth. Nobody signed up. Nobody. So my wife would say to me, "Well, why do we do it if it didn't work?" I said, "Well, if I knew it didn't work, I don't think I would have done it." But what I share is, We don't know it won't work until we do it. That's it. You know, if I can say Thomas Edison, right? He was trying to get the garage battery to work, and the guy asked him, and was being interviewed by the Star Ledger, a reporter from the Star Ledger, which is still the newspaper in New Jersey, of New Jersey. And he asked him, he said, Mr. Edison, how many times do you think you try to get this thing to work? And he said, I don't know, maybe 1,000. And he said, how do you sustain yourself through 1,000 failures? He said, I just don't look at it that way. I look at it as I found out 1,000 ways it wouldn't work. And that's a direct quote. Like, it's in the Star Ledger. Like, that's not, wives' tale, you know what I mean? Or folklore.
Do you get down? Do you get discouraged? Do you need pumping up from something or someone, or like, what do you do when you're looking at things that way?
I get down. I get down and people talk about, what is because you know this from fitness, what is it, your what is it, rhythm?
Circadian?
Yes,
circadian rhythm?
Like,
Yep.
yeah, mine is, it takes me a while for my engine to get going in the morning, right?
Mhm.
Once I hit and I have adrenaline going, I can really, get going. And so the short answer is, sure, I get down a lot. I get down when I feel people like betrayed me. I get, and by the way, that's only in my mind, right? Maybe they didn't, but I just feel it or think it. And I get down if I don't get an opportunity that I want to get. I get down when, I make a mistake that's costly. But what I will tell you is, and this is from my mother, I know it is, I have an indefatigable drive, right? Just an indefatigable drive. And and so while I am not happy, I know how to go forward. So I just keep going forward. My wife sometimes says to me, sometimes things just stink, because I'm always like, look at the silver lining, or, the glass is half full. And I said, don't think that I don't think it stinks, but it doesn't do us any good if I'm bitter, or I cry over, in my own soup, or, you know what I mean? Or cry over spilled milk. It's just, so yes, the short answer is routinely.
Tim,
I just keep going though, Andy.
does that make it hard for, say, your wife or other people to like connect with you? Like, your ability, I think it's a unique ability to be able to kind of go to the positive, go to the glasses half full always. But there's also perhaps a sense of like a challenging time to connect to the real part of you, like the other part, the part that everybody else might be feeling. Does that ever get in the way?
No, because to clarify it, I will have part one, which is what you're referring to.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, okay, part one's over. It's time for part two. What happens to a lot of people, Andy, is that they're in part one and they stay in part one.
Yep.
So I'm actually a very emotional person, maybe too much. And my wife is my confidant and, my business partner. So even though she's not involved in the day to day, I run everything by her. So if anything, I feel bad sometimes, Andy, sharing too much, not because, and I had one of my clients said this. He said, you have to be careful sharing too much with your partner. So whether you're a woman and you're running the business, or you're a man and you're running the business, because if they're not in it day to day, what happens is you come home and have a down day and they think the world's ending. Then you come home and everything's great. And then they're down and they're like, I thought it was great. And so I have to be more careful, if anything. So there's never a mystery, but, I talk things through with Patricia, and maybe sometimes I ought to just take a deep breath, relax. It's not concealing anything, but it's just not necessary to get anybody riled up.
Yeah, I get that. It makes me wonder, do you have a place where you can just take your pack off and just, like, not worry about what somebody else is thinking, or what else, like, who do you do that with, and where do you do it?
I don't worry about what anybody else thinks, although I used to a lot. I remember some guy wrote me an email and basically was just excoriated me. And I thought he was my friend. I was out of the blue, And I wrote him back and said, obviously I did something wrong and I apologize and I'd like to talk with you so I can know what it is. He never responded. It bothered me for several days, like for a week. It really did, Now I just know when I lay my head down at night, if I screwed somebody over, I never screw anybody over intentionally, but if I do something that is regretful or said something I shouldn't have said, I know it. I'm going to call up and say, I'm sorry, right? Because I want to clear the air, right? And so I don't really pay attention to what other people think. I think I used to too much, Andy, and I think it has held me back in my growth, right? I think I've been afraid of failure. We both know a guy named Wes Cirque, and, I was reading something and he and I were sharing it, and I think sometimes I play not to lose as opposed to win, Andy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I think that's because of fear of failure or, earlier in my career, what would Andy Petranek think if I failed? Was he going to laugh or whatever? And now I counsel people and I said to myself, Tim, you're just not that important. You're a good guy, but have their own issues. Like for a moment or so, they might care, but no, they're not thinking about you. And I do believe that. So I don't get in my head. I wish I could turn it off more if that's what you want to know. No, I just, and I think it is a little bit of the continuing clash between comfort, safety, and security and growing my business. And can it ever be grown enough where I'm fully comfortable, safe, and secure? So I don't turn it off enough, but I do have peace. Yes. But I do have a lot of anxiousness.
Does the anxiousness come from an expectation that you have of success or a definition that you have of success and winning or getting it or arriving?
I think it stems a little bit from a scarcity mindset, like as opposed to an abundance mindset. Like I've never, because I do believe that, God rewards those who put the effort in. He's always provided because I've always put the effort in. But notwithstanding that, Andy, I have to convince myself again and again and again and again and again. There's a great expression, right? Is that, I have suffered many tragedies in my life, most of which have never occurred.
Right. Well, that just goes to speak of the story that we create in our heads, the script that we've got playing in our heads based on whatever it is we see. And it's very different than the script, than what's actually going on. You can make the case that there are 8 billion people on the planet. There are 8 billion scripts going on simultaneously, which is kind of a weird concept. It's funny going back to one thing you said about, we were talking about what were we just talking about? Well, I was going to tell you a story about ghosting. Like I used to get really, really upset at people that ghost me. And somebody told me, this is about 3 months ago, ghosting has absolutely nothing to do with you. It has everything to do with something that's going on in their life.
Totally.
And that was one of those moments that let me allow myself to get completely off the hook. I'm like, oh yeah, they have stuff going on too. The world doesn't revolve around Andy. And I think that's what you were saying earlier. The world doesn't revolve around Tim.
Totally. And it wasn't narcissistic. It was insecurity.
Yes.
It wasn't like there are people who are narcissistic and do think the world revolves around them. But it wasn't that. It was more insecurity.
Well, and an insecure mind is constantly thinking about itself. And it's very difficult to be of service to other people and to the world when all you're doing is thinking about yourself.
Yes.
So you got to get out of your own way so you can actually serve and do the thing that you're here to do.
100%. 100%. Tony Robbins was saying is, if you're nervous or you're anxious, it's because you're focusing too much on yourself.
Yeah. Right.
And I think that there's some truth to be told. The other thing I heard is anxiety is because you're living in the future, right? Not where you are right now, but you're living in the future.
Yeah. And that is a condition that's really perplexing to people right now. They watch the news, they see what's going on in the world. There's a lot of upset all over the place in the world right now. And they start extrapolating what could happen as a result of this and what could happen as a result of that, whether it's finances or politics or your business or whatever the heck it is. And the God's honest truth is we live on planet that's spinning through the universe at 80 some thousand miles an hour. Like, who knows what's going to happen tomorrow? Who knows what's going to happen? And we live at the edge of uncertainty, and that is a powerful place to live. That's where everything is possible. But our little ego wants to have it all in place and have all the ducks in a row and lined up. And then when they're not, it gets afraid. And that's where anxiety comes into play.
So Spencer Johnson, who wrote the book Who Moved My Cheese, wrote another book called Peaks and Valleys. And there's a great analogy in there. He talks about the heart monitor. When there's no drama, what's the heart monitor? What does it do?
Monitors your heart rate. It's flat.
It's flat.
Yeah.
And what does that mean?
You're dead.
And the peaks and the valleys, life.
Or where there's life. There's life.
You know?
Yes.
And
Yes.
it's life. And, you know, it sounds great and it sounds romantic and it sounds reassuring and it is true. But being able to navigate through that is the challenging part. You know, I remember I was at a seminar Tony Robbins ran and he said, nobody's 100% confident all the time. The key is, can you summon up the confidence, enough confidence to take action? And I would add to that, everybody experiences anxiety, unless you're in a situation where, you know, you have absolute security. But even in those situations, your anxiety might revolve around your children or your health or whatever the case may be. I just think everybody should know, you know, when you're coaching, you know, you're coaching people, right? So Andy's got it all figured out. He's perfect because he's figured it out. And the answer is no. Similarly, Tim comes and you know, it's my job to do what I do, to summon the energy, to recruit, to motivate, to teach, things like that. But it doesn't mean I don't have those moments of nervousness and anxiety and, oh my God, what if? And it's okay, because I won't say that it's natural, because that's like saying, you know, you're afraid of public speaking. It's natural. It's not natural, because that means it's, you know, you're born with it. It's common, right? It's not normal. It's not natural, but it's common. So for me, Andy, my focus is, yes, I'll continue to learn skills, resources, and knowledge, right? But for me, my final frontier of battle is between my ears, to self-actualize as much as possible, where my anxiousness is rooted in taking risks that are smart and calculated, but knowing they could not work out, but a healthy anxiousness, if you will.
You know, that's an interesting area that I wanted to ask you about. What's the hardest part now of maintaining the level of success that you've achieved, that you've built? Like, where do you struggle? Where do you have to stay on your game?
It's growth. And I will say that I have had a tremendous amount of success that has led to a wonderful lifestyle, you know, all of the things that come along with it. I've not had that breakthrough moment. And so that's what keeps me going, like that breakthrough program, that breakthrough moment. You know, you'll get those people who will sell something online and, you know, they'll make $1 million or something like that. And it's true, right? I haven't had that breakthrough moment, right? And that's what I'm chasing. And it's not, while I like money and I like nice things, it's not a measurement as much as it is a marker. If I achieve the breakthrough, what it means is I have conquered some of my fears. I have stepped further outside my comfort zone. It's the evidence. But I'm not going to tell you like, oh, but Andy, I don't care about money. It's not what I'm saying. But what I am saying is I don't have money. I don't have a number in my mind that's the measuring stick, whether it's against myself or comparing it to other people. It's more as, if I achieve this number, it means I had figured it out. I've had a breakthrough. And that breakthrough, no doubt, will come not from more skill, resource, or knowledge, but it'll come from creativity, coming up with an idea that's so compelling, or the timing is right and I stayed in the game long enough. You know what I mean?
I do, but I have another question along the same line is, when is more no, when can you, uh, relax in knowing that you've got enough? Like that more isn't required to either prove whatever it is you wanna prove to yourself or to get it. Like,
So the short answer to that is when I got involved with those guys and it was a lawsuit, it was a disaster. It set me back significantly. So from just a financial standpoint, I had a ways to go.
got it.
So the short answer is yes, I would love to get to that point and then spend my, career writing more, maybe not as much blocking and tackling, but thinking more strategically. And maybe having my price point be extraordinarily high where I literally have fewer, better clients. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so like that's where to me the success would be. I am not going to retire, right? I just can't see myself because I don't like this. I don't like coming to the West Side meetings. I don't like people asking me for advice. All those things are humbling. They're awesome. I love them. It energizes me. When I leave those meetings, I'm more fired up than you guys.
Yeah, totally.
You know?
Yeah,
When you're working with people, particularly
Yeah.
successful people, and you say to yourself, God, you know how humbling. This person's wildly successful, and they're turning to me and asking me for guidance. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's very, I mean, you in the business realm and me in the life realm are very similar in the sense that it's there's an honor, there's an appreciation and a gratitude of like God put us here for a reason to be able to serve other people. And whether that's in the easy way you have of seeing somebody's personal brand and being able to nail it in a 30-second elevator pitch, or whatever that is, and it inspires you. And I think that's how you start to recognize the merging between what you do and who you are. Like those two things start to meld. And because I can't really picture you otherwise, Tim. Like it's
Yeah.
just who you are.
Yeah.
And it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah. And I love it. I was just, I was reading an article about Lawrence Tribe, who is a very famous constitutional lawyer, retired from Harvard, but he holds the so-and-so seat of law at the university. He's still teaching. He retired, but he didn't. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
So he retired to make room for maybe other tenured professors because that's not what he needs. And yet at the same point is he has all this wisdom. I mean, I'm just going to stop. And he's 80 years old.
As you watch your kids getting older and as you getting older and getting wiser, hopefully, do you ever wonder whether the strategy that got you here is the one that's gonna continue to take you where you want to go? Have you ever considered that there may be something else, or do you not need to?
No, there definitely is. And that's why I'm always learning. I'm always looking to see who is further along than I am. I'm not a jealous person. Like I don't look down, like try to put other people down because they're more successful. I want to figure out how they did it so I can replicate it. Right? My wife will sometimes say to me, don't you wish that maybe you just stayed in the law and I was a city councilman and stayed in politics? And I said, no. I said, first of all, had I wouldn't be here with you. That's number one. Number two is I wouldn't be in California. Number three is, even though it's been like watching hot dogs being made at times, I never would have become the person I am. I never would have experienced the things I had I stayed the traditional route and been an attorney, progressed up through the firm and become a partner. Now, other people have done that and have done spectacularly well. But I was lucky because remember, comfort, safety, and security, I wasn't making the most of being in the firm. I wasn't blossoming as a flower. I was just following the safe path. So I had to get outside of that path. And what my hope is to show my children is don't settle for something. Decide what you want to do and then go for it, right? That's the beauty of it is, does anybody ever say, I always wanted to be a, software salesperson. Now there are people who make millions of dollars at that. The answer is no, they don't. But they get out of college, and if they're lucky, they get that job, they love it, it works out. But most of the time, people just sort of fall into their career. And if they're talented, they progress up that correct ladder, but it's not what they chose. It's not what they thought they wanted to do. You and I right now, for better or for worse, have chosen what we want to do.
And I would say, Tim, maybe it's chosen us. Like there's almost been I can't see myself going a different direction, and I see the same thing for you. Like it's just it's just the way we're wired.
Yeah. It's funny. When I was a lawyer, I was a busybody, right? I was always minding everybody's business, right? But it wasn't like gossip minding their business. It was more like, you should do this and you should. I was a coach. Even then,
Yep.
And so intuitively inside my mind. And then I remember going to an acting class and this guy talked about the Empower Hour. And I was just blown away. And it literally was like, I've never taken drugs, but it was like drugs because I was so liberated because I realized I don't have to do this. I can choose. And then remember, like you said, the path is not always a straight line. It's circuitous, right? And
it's one of my favorite diagrams that I draw. And I use a whiteboard when I'm coaching, and I'll draw one. Everybody thinks that growth is this, like a 45-degree line. Growth is like this crazy squiggle. Like, and hopefully the trajectory is up, but at any given moment in that squiggly path, you could be going straight down, straight backwards, and not if you don't have the ability to broaden your perspective, you might not see that, and it could be devastatingly difficult.
And somebody like you helps people see it and realize there's nothing wrong with you. This is just the path you're on, and it's not like you're saying everybody has to surrender to that path. It's just like, hey, see your path and don't panic. This is your path, and
exactly,
it's okay. Well, correct it, get linear, get more intentional.
Yeah,
but it couldn't have happened any other way because it didn't, right? And it's like that was somebody shared that quote with me, right? It had to happen this way because it happened.
Because that's the way it happened. Like how else could it have happened? And that just goes to show anxiety is to the future as depression is to the past. So going back and looking at your past and trying and telling yourself I should have, shoulding yourself, it just doesn't work. No. That's one of my favorite things to say. Stop shoulding yourself because it just doesn't. There's no possible way that could ever help you. Learn from your mistakes and move forward. But let me ask you a question. Do you have who do you have as a coach? Do you have someone that's your coach that you work with to keep your point sharp?
I have a mindset coach. I mean, she and I work just on mindset. Right. It's not like I'm a real good goal setter. And, I follow I practice what I preach.
Yeah, you do.
And I always say to my clients, like, I'm not perfect. I make a lot of mistakes. I don't teach my clients things that I don't do. Right. I teach clients, I've tried many more things that didn't work that I don't teach my clients. So I practice what I preach. And so I don't need help on the nuts and bolts. I just need help on this part. You know what I mean?
Yep. Totally. Which really is that's the whole game, because your thoughts create the words you choose, and the words you choose create your actions, and your actions create your results. If it all starts with your thinking, and that is the whole game.
It's interesting. Like for a long time, I heard about this, right? Like, so right now I'm building out this prospecting product, right? And for a long time I heard, and it was always, it was had to have the best product. It had to be perfect. Everything had to be beautifully dialed in. And now I realize just, it have minimum viable product.
Yep.
MVP.
MVP. Yeah. Yep.
And then, and what's great about that is, um, uh, uh, Reid Hoffman, the founder of LinkedIn, said, if you're happy with your first launch, you've waited too long.
That's right. That's right.
Right.
And
So
that's a tough one. That's a tough one for me. I'm a perfectionist. I like to get it right the first time. I like to swing for the fences. Like this podcast is a great example. I've had this in my hopper of things. I've had it since probably March, and now we're in September. It's like, come on, let's go.
but now it's ready to go.
Yeah.
Now, okay, now it does, okay, I can do this.
But
It's easy.
even the fact that we do this for a living, we fall prey to the same stuff that
100%.
our clients do. We're not perfect. We're human beings. And the key piece is how quickly can we see it and recover and then allow ourselves to move forward, forgive ourselves and then move forward.
Andy had a client one time say to me, and he was a friend, and he was supportive, and he said, I don't think you should share so much about your mistakes. And I get why he was saying it, because I'm the teacher up in front of the room. But I realized, for whatever intuitive level, I'm like, no. As a matter of fact, I need to share screw-ups. So people say, okay, well, you screwed up and now you're doing this. Okay, cool. Right? Because I don't like, and I come in contact with these people. I don't like when people, everything's perfect. Like and coaches, you know what I mean?
Well, it's unrelatable because nobody, when you look at yourself in the mirror, and I don't care who you are, I don't care who you are, when you look at yourself in the mirror, you're not perfect. And so somebody that says they are, or somebody that can't see the ways that they're not, becomes unrelatable.
And in addition to them not being able to relate to them, in addition to the client not being able to relate to them, they can't really give sound advice because they've never experienced the pain, the struggle, the heartache, even though if they have, and they're just denying it, right? Denying themselves that experience, right? It goes both ways. Both your client can't relate to you and you can't be very effective in working with your client.
100%. Yeah. Which is part of the problem going on in the business coaching world, in the life coaching world. You've got, everybody and their brother hanging their shingle saying that they're a coach, and they haven't gone through the life. They haven't had the experience. They haven't, and with the authenticity that you bring to the world that you are serving is just off the charts. I am so grateful to have stumbled into your life 20 some odd years ago.
It's really
and
nice.
to be part of it today.
This may shock you. It may be adjusted for the rate of inflation and everything. But a number of years ago, I went to the National Speakers Association conference, which was spectacular. I mean, you've never seen so many entertaining, talented people in one location. It was spectacular, right? You can imagine, because we are corporate entertainment. Like when we do keynote speeches, we're corporate entertainment. And there's all different kinds of corporate entertainment, right? And, but I remember somebody saying the average coach makes $30,000 a year.
Wow.
Even assume it's 50. Like you said, anybody can hang up their shingle, but not anybody can be effective.
Right. Tim, in closing, I know we're running out of time. What, you've already shared a little bit. What's next for you, for Rainmaker U, for you? Like, how are you moving this thing forward?
So I've got 6 chapters, going to open our 7th in Orange County. I'd like to build each of the chapters out to 20, spend all my time coaching and connecting. And so I've got this great group of 120, 140 people that are basically part of the Rainmaker U community. And I'm doing my coaching. And then I've also, what I'm excited about is I've built out this model on teaching people how to prospect. And I think that that's going to be the breakthrough for me, because it will allow me to leverage. See, we're like dancing bears, right? Throw money at us and we dance. The genius is being able to figure out how to leverage yourself. And so I think I built a leverageable model. So that's what I'm most excited about. So in a year, hopefully, we can connect. And again, and I'll leave you with this. My ultimate goal is WFA, work from anywhere. That's
Beautiful.
the ultimate goal.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Is there any advice you give to anybody else out there who's either an entrepreneur or moving forward in their life? And, what would you tell them to do?
I would say you must have an endless, endless, endless well for failure, to embrace failure. You have to, because if you do, it will never demolish you. It will set you back. It will get you down. It will frustrate you. But if you have this, I don't want to say appetite for it, but this resiliency, knowing, okay, I'm going to get, like I'm a running back in the NFL, and I'm just going to get pounded and pounded and pounded and pounded and pounded. I'm just going to keep going, right? But if you are afraid of getting pounded, you're going to get crushed. You've got to be able to take the beating. Look, if you're in sales, 90% of all sales, people are going to say no. 80% of all sales are made after the fifth contact. Of 100% of the people that make the first contact, only 40% make the third, 25% make the fourth, and only 10% make the fifth. 80% of all sales are made after the fifth contact, right? So what does that mean? What it means is you're not in competition with the other 90%. You're in competition with a small fraction of people. And if you can keep that perspective and you have resiliency, you're going to be successful.
Yeah, and what I hear in that is just keep going.
That's it.
Just like your dad said, just keep going.
I go one direction forward.
Yeah, right. It's beautiful, Tim. Where can people find out more about Rainmaker U?
So you can reach me at rainmakeru.net. It's rainmakeru.net. Or I'm on LinkedIn as the person to see, and you can DM me, or you can email me at tob@thepersonalbrandinggroup.com, tob@thepersonalbrandinggroup.com.
Fantastic. Tim, thanks for being here, for sharing so much of your life, for being so vulnerable and genuine and authentic. I appreciate you, man.
Yeah, I appreciate you too. Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity to be the first one.
The guinea pig.
You got it. I'll see you,
Wasn't
brother.
so bad, right? Wasn't so bad.
I'll see you.
Okay, see ya.